This segment is brought to you by JigMasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to JigMasters.com and use promo code PNF20 and save 20% off your next jig order today.
You're listening to Bass Fishing for Noobs on the Paddle and Fin podcast with your hosts Ryan Milford and Sean Lavery. Welcome back to Bass Fishing for Noobs on the Paddle and Fin podcast. I'm Ryan. We got Sean in here.
Hey guys, what's up?
And this week is the 1-year anniversary of Bass Fishing for Noobs being on Paddle and Fin.
Woohoo!
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah.
and that there, for the ones that are listening and not watching on YouTube, that was Mr. Brad Hicks. Brad was actually the first interview I ever did when we first moved Bass Fishing for Noobs over here to Paddle and Fin. So I thought it'd be cool to bring him on again tonight. And, just since he's the first guest, let him be here for the 1-year anniversary. And, we're going to pick his brain a little bit, see how much he's grown in this past year and any new stuff that he might be able to give us a little insight on. So welcome back, Brad.
Thanks, man. I like being on the podcast.
Have you been back on Bass Fishing for Noobs since that first episode?
No, I was going to come on with Josh to talk about the Wicked Willow, and then I ended up getting stuck on the river too long, and I didn't make it.
Yeah.
I suck.
You do, but...
Oh.
But, hey, I don't blame you. To me, we do this podcast. We do it because, we enjoy fishing and everything. But, to me, actually fishing prioritizes the podcast. It just to me, because, what's the point in doing the podcast if you're not going to get out and fish? So
Yeah, I agree.
I was thinking about that tonight. I was like, man, I got to get home. But then when we bumped it back a little later tonight, I was like, oh, good. That gives me a little more time.
And you ended up catching some catfish.
Lots of catfish. Dang. I was like, where are the bass at, man?
That's still cool, though. Those things hit so hard.
Oh, man. They were pulling me around the river, man.
That's awesome.
And whenever I caught mine back in May, it was the very first cast of the day. I just got out there, I pedaled out a little ways, and I was right between these two little islands, and I cast out and it hit, and I'm like, oh, I got a bass already. It's gonna be a great day. And they bring up a catfish. I'm like, dude, what is?
Mine were like splashing me and stuff. I was like soaked. They were big. They did fight hard, but not exactly what I was looking for. So,
were you on the Susquehanna?
Yeah.
Did you run into any of the Hobie guys?
No, because they're all the boundaries for that tournament were Harrisburg was the farthest south you could be. So that was plenty north of me.
I didn't know that.
How far away is that?
Harrisburg's only about half an hour from me. So I thought about
bad driving, but
the
pedaling or paddling.
Yeah. The Kayak Anglers of Central PA, the group that I'm with, they actually had a tournament today in the same area. So I almost went up for that, but I was like, I've only fished that area one other time before, so I was like, I'm going to skip it. But
well, see, I heard you mention the other day that you, like, somebody said you should sign up for that Hobie event, and you're like, I might do it just to meet people. And so I was looking for your name on there today. I wasn't sure if you're doing it or not.
Well, I thought about just going up to the Kayak Anglers one just to see who I ran into, but then I ended up staying home and just fishing down here. So
I probably would have done the same, just not get in the way of those Hobie guys.
Right. I figured with 2 different tournaments up there, it was going to be, I mean, it's a big river and a big area, but I'm like, it's going to be busy. So,
yep.
There was an event down here today that I thought about going to fish, but then last night I was like, I still was undecided, but I was like, I'm not going to do it. I would have had to get up really early. It started at 5 a.m. You could be on the water at 4, and wow. I live an hour away, or right at an hour. So that would have
You had to get up at like 2:30.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I was tired. I
Dude.
was like, I'm not doing that. But I'm kind of glad I didn't now, because it was a MLF style event. Unlimited amount of fish over 12 inches. But like, I think the top 2 caught 6 fish, and then 3 and below were 4 and under, like 4 fish or less. And I'm like, that was some rough fishing for an MLF event.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
So I definitely would have got hurt. My feelings hurt on that one.
I did that tournament in Indiana. If I wouldn't have stayed in Indianapolis last night, I probably wouldn't have done the tournament, because I would have had to wake up at like 3. I was like, nah.
You drove up there last night?
Yeah.
Cool.
I ended up waking up at 3 anyway because I couldn't sleep.
The anticipation getting to you. Huh?
Yeah, dude. Every day, every night before a tournament, it's like that. I hate it.
Yeah, see, I'm wondering. I've actually got a 444 event. I think I've talked about it on here before, but it's, there's 4 groups of 4 people, and each group goes out on their own, like, and it's 4 people go out for 4 hours, and we fish, and it's kind of like an MLF style, unlimited number of fish, but over 12 inches. But whoever wins that, or whoever wins from all 4 groups, those 4 people, plus they'll have a losers round and whoever wins that, so it'll be a total of 5, will go to like a championship. And I actually won my round last time and then skunked in the championship. But I got another one of those tomorrow, so
Yes. That sounds cool.
Yeah.
I probably won't sleep tonight.
Yep.
But yeah, let's get into it. So, a year ago when I had you on here, I was a terrible interviewer. Like, I was so nervous. It's kind of crazy, like how nervous you are when you first get into this, and then now, like, I don't even think about we're being recorded while we talk.
Yeah. Yeah, I was nervous the first time I did a podcast too. I ended up screwing up Brian's outro at the end. I listened to it now and I'm like, I'm an idiot.
Do you go back and listen to your old episodes just to
see what it sounded like? Yeah. I don't listen to the whole thing.
Well, we talked a lot about chatterbaits and stuff like that, and talked about river fishing and all that. So let's just kind of touch on that a little bit. It's been a year. See if you've evolved anymore as a river fisherman, and we'll go off that. So, like, what is a chatterbait still a go-to lure for you?
Yeah, out in the lakes. Our last tournament we had, I start out with the Ned rig. I get my limit with the Ned rig, and then I'll upscale my baits to get the upgrades. So I got my limit at our Rocky Fork tournament, and then I started throwing the chatterbait. And it's weird because I don't throw jigs, like flipping jigs and stuff, but I was throwing the chatterbait into cover like a flipping jig, and I upgraded twice doing that.
Huh.
I still use the chatterbait.
Just
not much on the river.
Do you still use it the same? Like, I know you said before is like usually like a black and blue with like a turbo crawl on there.
I've gotten away from the turbo crawl and I went to the Zaco, whatever you call it. Yamamoto.
I actually, preparing for that event I got tomorrow, I went ahead and set up a bunch of stuff as go-tos, and I've got some chatterbaits set up, and I've never used the Zacos or whatever however they're pronounced. I've never used them, but I put those on as the trailers because they look good. They look real similar to the razor shads, the Z-Man razor shads, but they're a whole lot easier to put on.
Yeah, that's why I started using them too.
Man,
they got a little bit more movement in the tail too than a
really
razor shad. Razor shad's like a tight movement. I don't really like it.
And man, I like the razor shads, but
They're not bad.
they're just that elastic is so hard, especially on a chatterbait style. You know, the way you rig it on a chatterbait, it's so hard to like, you know, you've got to judge it just right on where to come out at, or you know, you throw it's all wonky and you throw it all off, and you know, it's just so hard for me to do personally.
Yeah, I agree. That elastic's crazy.
But it catches several fish per bait.
I caught a bunch of them on the TRD today. Just one of them. So, yeah, they last forever.
So, when it comes to river fishing, you know, I could use a refresher course on this because I'm just now, even though we talked about that a year ago, and I've talked to several other people about river fishing, I'm just now like really getting into it. So I'm trying to remember everything. So talk a little bit about like target areas, like where you're trying to fish, because I'm trying to cast right up in like the rapids or whatever you want to call it, and you know, I've set up an anchor in the front of my kayak where I can drop it to kind of hold me in that fast moving water and cast up into it. And I've had a little bit of success with that. But like, what do you target anything in the slow and moving water, or do you just look for that faster moving water?
Yeah, actually, this is something like I've actually caught on to this year. So like we're gonna just for summertime reference here, you'll find those fish in the shallow, fast moving water, like you said, cross riffles where the riffle is completely across stream. The other spot they'll be in on the river is anywhere there's rock on the bottom and the water's deep. So, for instance, today on the river, I was getting small fish in the riffles today, so I knew the big ones weren't there. So I started throwing deeper water, and I caught all my fish that filled out my limit, like 8 feet, 8 to 11 feet. So anywhere it gets deep and there's rock on the bottom and there's a little current, they'll be there in the summer too.
That's like smallmouth?
Yeah. Largemouth, I'm not a big river largemouth guy. I have no idea.
Well, that I don't know. It just kind of I think I'm yet to catch a smallmouth in water that's not, maybe like a little current, but like it's moving water, like moving pretty good for me to catch a smallmouth. I haven't caught any in any slower moving water yet. But you saying that, I got an area that popped in my head that might be a good place.
Yeah, that's sweet.
And what were you throwing in the deeper water? Or did you say Ned rig?
Yeah, I was throwing the TRD. Okay. I was throwing the spinnerbait too, and I got some hits on that, but they were all tiny. But
now, with the TRD, do you stick with the Z-Man, or do you go with any other Ned rig soft plastics?
Nah, just Z-Man. It just lasts longer.
What about the jig head?
I don't like Z-Man's Ned heads. The wire, they just break too easy, or the wire hook. They're so thin they break so easy. So I've been using Wicked Weights. Seems like their gauge wire is a little bit heavier. Plus it's tungsten. Yeah. So why not?
And I think, who was it? I think it was somebody that you interviewed that I just recently listened to. Was talking about like the little Ned heads, talking about how they need to be flat because if they're kind of rounded, they tip over.
Yeah, I forget who that was.
That wasn't that last interview, did like Braden?
Oh yeah, it was.
Was
it
it
was him? Yeah, he said his baits. The only time he has trouble with them rolling over is when he's using the rounded Ned heads. I don't like using those for that reason.
Yeah, I was thinking about, I never really thought about it, I guess, before that. But tonight when I was rigging up some go-to baits and stuff, I thought about it and I was like, all of my Ned heads are rounded.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel like that Elastic and the Z-Man TRDs though, I feel like they kind of make up for that somewhat because they seem to like float, like stand up on their own a lot better than a lot of other soft plastic Neds.
You should go back and watch the YouTube video of Braden's baits. His new tapered TRD that he has, man, it has so much action. And I want to try it. It looks awesome.
Talking about jigs, I had ordered Lifted Jigs makes an EWG net head. And I ordered them, and I remember getting them in the mail, and I've looked everywhere through all my fishing stuff. I have no clue where they are. They're like gone.
Dude, that happens to me all the time.
I keep telling myself I'm going to buy some of those, but then I never do.
It took forever to get here, and I have no clue where I stuck them. I was like, man, I'm going to the river tonight. I really want to use those, and I looked through everything, and I cannot find them.
Those would be a lifesaver for me because I lost. I don't even know how many I lost today. There's a bunch of them.
I lose a ton on the river too for the same reason, and I've tried, putting the Ned on there, or the TRD on there kind of crooked to try and make it weedless. Yeah, and that works somewhat, but it's definitely not the same as if you actually had a EWG hook.
Ryan actually taught me that with his video, Texas rigging it. Yeah, I started doing it because of that.
For real?
Yeah, it works.
I want to. I forget who it was, where I heard it, but somebody was talking about how. Maybe was it Jimmy? I don't remember. They said they basically had somebody that would take. They had a mold for like a swing head jig, and they would just put a really small hook on it and use those to like kind of Texas rig their TRDs on. And so I keep forgetting, but I got a buddy that's got one of those molds. I don't know what the smallest size he has is. So, if he's got some smaller sizes, I thought about trying that and buying like some whatever 1 or 2 odd hooks or whatever it is that I would need.
I was thinking even cool. Like a smaller Tokyo rig hook would do it because you can put whatever weight you want on there.
I need to get into doing stuff like that.
What, like molding your own lures and stuff?
Like jig heads and stuff like that. I use them enough. Might as well.
It's cool. It is time consuming, and the initial cost is kind of high because I've talked about it. I used to make my own football head jigs, and I still got the stuff to do it. I just haven't done it in a long time. But it's pretty time consuming. Like I think I got to a point where if I had stayed busy and didn't let my ADD get the best of me, like I could make like 10 in an hour.
Yeah, I remember you saying that on one of your episodes.
Yeah, but it is cool when you actually catch a fish on the lure you made. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I bet it'd be sweet.
Somebody got the police coming after him?
I live down the street from a hospital. Oh. I'm on a main road.
So when you, I've often wondered. I've only caught like 2 Ned rig fish in the river, and but I hear tons of people doing it. So I don't know if my technique is wrong, or are you like casting up current and just letting it like bounce its way back to you, or what's your cast and retrieve like?
Sometimes, usually when I'm fishing like an eddy next to the fast moving water, I'll cast upstream on that seam right there, and they'll bring it back to me. But today I was pointing downstream and casting into brush piles that were in the right off the bank. And I let it drop down to the 8-foot to the 11-foot range.
Okay.
Because those logs and those brush piles, they act as like a current break. So smallmouth like to sit on those.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
I actually saw an eddy. this is my first time like actually noticing it. Last weekend when I was out on the river, I was like, "That's what Brad was talking about a while back."
Where the water is going the opposite way of the main current.
I think it was like it kind of like swirled back around. Yeah.
Yep. That's because you got the main current coming and it's hitting a bank and it's pushing the water back upstream.
Yeah.
That's what it's doing. Smallmouth like to stack up in those all year round almost.
And it was a decent depth right in there too. So
yeah,
like,
it usually is because that current's like digging underneath you know. And
so you usually cast just on the edge of that, right on the edge where it's one direction and the other. Like that's where you cast, or where do you cast up past it and pull it through that?
I do all of it.
Okay.
Cast over it, bring it back to you. I'll even cast in the slack area because sometimes they'll be right up against the bank too.
Right.
Especially if the water's high and muddy or something. You can catch them right off the bank, and even at the tail end, I mean, you can back off the fast moving water and just cast in the slow stuff. It just depends on what they want.
I just have to throw it more often. I tend not to because I don't have luck with it. So I usually have one tied on, but usually do not throw it. And then what'll happen is I'll be like, I'll try it. And then I'll get snagged right away. And I'll be like, screw this.
You need to try that Texas rig thing.
Yeah,
It's a good idea. It works.
if you can find them.
Well, just on the regular hook.
Yeah.
Like you did.
Just put it on crooked. So.
Yeah, it still works.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I caught fish doing it like that.
I did today.
Near as much.
Yeah.
But what was I? Oh, I've thought about it. You do like your point-to-point floats. I haven't done that yet. I'm just basically pedaling upriver and floating back. So, say you're coming down the river on a point-to-point float. You got to get to the other side of these like rapids in order to cast into them, to cast upstream. Like you just float right down through there and then just start casting. Like I feel like that would like scare the fish or something whenever you go through there.
I actually did this last week because we had to go through a little rock dam that had like a chute. So instead of going through the chute, I guess I portaged. I pulled my kayak over the rocks and then put it in below it, and then I anchored in and fished where I wanted to fish, where the quicker moving water was, so I didn't scare the fish. And it was funny because my buddy that was with me, he was going to do the same thing. He ended up pulling his kayak over the rocks, and just as he got into his kayak, there were some recreational kayaks that just went right through it, and he's like, now I can't even fish a spot. They scared him away probably.
It's interesting hearing you guys talk about that, because I'm so used to the Susquehanna where it's a mile wide, so you can pretty much go around darn near everything. It's and I just can't picture something that small that it goes the way across, because I'm so used to not even worrying about paddling from one shore to the other, because it would take forever.
If you seen the river I was on last weekend, you'd be like, "Holy crap, this ain't a river!" It's like a foot,
like a creek.
Yeah, it's like a foot deep and like 20 feet wide.
Huh. I mean, and part of me thinks I'd like that, because when you're looking at the Susquehanna, you're like, where the heck do I even start?
Yeah.
There's only so many places you can go if it's 20 foot wide.
That I struggle with that too, actually, now that you say that, because actually the White River I was on in Indianapolis today, the closer you get to the city, it gets wider and wider. I'm just sitting here looking at it. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm not used to this. It's weird.
Yeah, it's overwhelming for sure, but I'm learning. There's still, like today, I thought I was in an area where there should have been bass, but they weren't there. But last night I went out with my daughter for a little bit, and I was slaying the tiny ones. It was like we were only out for like an hour, and I had 5 or 6 tiny ones, just throwing that inline spinner, but I couldn't find anything of size. And then today it was all catfish for whatever reason. So
if I'm correct, the Susquehanna it's like a quick, shallow river that's wide and it has a lot of big boulders, right?
Yep, pretty much. There's parts that are deeper and
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a lot of ledges, a lot of especially near me, rocks sticking up. So, today I was fishing behind the rocks, in front of the rocks, because it's big current breaks and it makes big eddies, but I didn't have any luck. So
that's what I was gonna say. I would target those boulders and stuff. A lot of guys like to throw flukes. I don't know if you've tried that.
I have not tried it on the river. Well, that's the lie. When I first started out, I tried it, but I didn't really know at all what I was doing. So I've heard that, and I need to keep trying. I need to try that too. So
yeah, try like a weightless fluke and throw it around those big boulders and let it like the slack water behind the boulder, let it just sink. Usually, I hear guys talking about it all the time. They get hits right there.
And if you need advice on fishing a fluke, another one of my early episodes of Bass Fishing for Noobs was Alan Reed talking about fishing flukes.
Yeah.
So you can go back and listen to that.
I hung out with him after the tournament today, and he was
I saw
talking
that.
about flukes.
I saw
Really?
you post that.
Yeah. That's where, that's where I heard he was throwing the fluke today, and that's what he was doing. That's why it popped into my head.
How'd he finish?
He only had 2 keepers, I think. It was a tough day, man.
One of the guys in the noob tournament or in the noob forum had posted that he throws anywhere he would throw a wacky rig, he'll throw a weightless Senko too, or a weightless fluke. And so I started throwing it on the lake, and actually have caught a few on the lake using that, the same place I'd throw a wacky rig Senko. And I just, for whatever reason, haven't tried it on the river yet. But that's a good idea. I'll have to try that.
I'm gonna have to try it too.
I still haven't tried a fluke. I've put them on chatterbaits as trailers, but I haven't actually tried like just a weightless fluke. I don't know what it is. I just can't get myself to use it, which I can't really get myself to use anything other than the Wicked Willow and a swim bait right now. It's ridiculous how hung up I get on lures. Last year is the Whopper Plopper. I couldn't put it down regardless of conditions. This year, it's this Wicked Willow with a swim bait, and I can't put it down regardless of conditions. But it's been a lot more effective than the Whopper Plopper was. So,
I'm the same way. Like today or lately, I've been wanting to throw nothing but the spinner bait, and it's been a couple years since I've used one of those. I've just picked it up. I'm like, I want to catch fish on this. I don't know why.
A couple months ago when I was off work, I ordered, some spinner baits and some trailer hooks, and ordered nicer spinner baits, not $1, $2, $3. Like I ordered the $6, $7, $8 spinner baits. And I was like, I'm going to learn this technique. I'm going to get it down. And then I started catching fish on that Wicked Willow before they actually came in, and now they're just in a box.
Do you use a trailer on your spinner baits, or do you just throw it straight?
Just trailer? Straight. No trailer hook either. I don't like trailer hook. But the spinner bait I've been using is a finesse one, so it's smaller than a typical. But you should start throwing that spinner bait. I've started throwing it anywhere where I see laydowns in the river or something. Log jams, anything. Throw that spinner bait in there, let it sink, and then crank it slow. You're going to get hit. I guarantee it.
I had my spinnerbait box in the truck today, but when I got to the river, I was like, I don't have room for that. And I left it in the back of the truck. So
yeah, it's like it stays tied on my rod now. I enjoy the spinnerbait. I grew up throwing it all the time. So it's kind of like a good memory, I guess.
Did y'all see my picture in the group chat earlier? My underspin.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's like that huge swim bait on man. I've heard people talk about like oh yeah, on my event tomorrow's on Percy Priest, and yeah, it's that thing's massive. That's a 3/4 ounce weight.
I was just gonna ask you. It looks like a lot of weight.
Well, see, I've heard people talk about how good the deep fishing is on Percy Priest, targeting really deep areas with big swim baits. And usually if I fish where I prefer to fish it, I'm on the southern end, and it's a lot more shallow down there. Like the deep areas are like maybe 30 foot in the channels. But you go up to the north end, I think it gets to like 50 or more. And so that's like where it's really deep. So, and that's where I got to fish tomorrow for that event. So I'm like, I'm going to rig this up and take it with me. And if I'm not having any luck, I'm going to find me a deep spot and just start working it. I don't even have like a setup to throw it on. So I'm just going to put it, my jig rod's a heavy rod. And so I'm just going to throw it on my jig rod and see what happens.
Why not? Is that lake a smallmouth lake?
There's smallmouth on it, but I've never caught one on the lake.
You should, me
personally.
You should target the Rocky Points with like drop shot or that swim bait or something, or a Ned rig.
Yeah, I've got some Ned rigs set up. I don't have my rods in here. I already put them in the truck. Right now, I've taken 4 rods like normal. I've got a wacky rig, and why I chose to have a wacky rig tied on first thing, I don't know, because I've never caught a fish on a wacky rig. I was just watching how-to videos on a wacky rig on YouTube earlier, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do this. But yeah, wacky rig, Kitech with a Wicked Willow, flipping jig, and whopper plopper. That's
you can go.
I was gonna say I was looking on Facebook today or yesterday, and for our local lake, one of the guys actually had he was throwing a camera with a temperature sensor around just to see what he could see. And I was amazed because like the deepest part of Lake Redmond where I fish the most is like 37 feet deep. The temperature at 37 feet deep was 55 degrees. And
really?
At the top when it's shallow, it was like 87. So
Wow.
that blew my mind that the temperature was that big difference. And I'm like, no wonder the fish are deep.
Yeah.
I've always wondered that. I always thought about tying a thermometer onto my rod and casting down there just to see how the temperature difference is. That's cool.
It was a cool little camera that he had, and there were bass down there at 37 feet. He found a rock pile that deep, and they were sitting there right on it. So I'm like, that's crazy. When he said 55 degrees, I was like, that can't be right. But he's like, no, it's right here in the video. Look, and sure enough.
Huh. And see, that's kind of what's going to hurt me trying to fish deep is I don't have like a very good fish finder to find like little rock piles or whatever under there. So I'm pretty much going to have to be like guessing it. I got the sonar, but I still ain't real good at reading that. Plus it's only a 4-inch. So you're getting like 30 to 50 foot of water. It's not going to read very clear anyways. So.
Yeah. Well, if you're doing it without a fish finder, I look at the bank, and if you're fishing points and you see this bank coming down and you see rocks before it goes into the water, you know you're going to be on a rocky bottom. That's how I do it without a fish finder.
It's interesting because there is a point that I plan on fishing that has got rocks coming way out, so I might tie that thing on and run it down through there, see what happens.
Yeah. And here another thing I've learned this year, because I've been trying to teach myself how to fish deeper, trying to get your bait down to 20 feet deep doesn't take as long as you think it does. And that's been like a big mental thing with me for a long time. And this year I'm starting to get the hang of it. And 10 to 15 feet of water is no longer like an obstacle for me, I guess. Like I'm starting to get comfortable with it.
So like, how do you? That is an interesting subject because, I feel like a lot of that's going to depend on the weight of the lure you're throwing. Like, that big swim bait with that 3/4 ounce, underspin that we were just talking about. I don't feel like that's gonna take very long to sink.
No, it'll get to the bottom real fast, like 5 seconds probably.
Yeah, but then these like bigger thing or smaller things that are a lot lighter, I feel like those are, I've heard a lot of people talk about 1 second per foot on a lot of lures. So
I don't know. I throw a 1/5 ounce on my TRD, and it seems like it gets down to the like today, 11 feet. It probably took like 3 seconds, I think. Didn't take long at all. Drop shot weights, like the torpedoes, the torpedo looking ones. Those things, you throw those in there, they sink fast. I'm surprised how fast. So I think the shape has something to do with it too. That's just observations, though. I'm not.
Yeah, that does make sense because you think about when you were a kid swimming in the swimming pool and you jump in, you like do the board plank or whatever or the pencil. That's what it was called.
Yeah.
Where you like get real straight. Like you went deeper than if you like spread out.
Yeah, that's cool.
So
I definitely need to work on my drop shotting more. I have no feel for that. Like I feel like as soon as it's down there, I just don't know at all what it's doing. Like I just don't have a good feel for it at all. And I've tried it a couple times on the lake this year, especially because I'm having trouble right now with my wacky rig, which is my go-to. So they're just not shallow right now. And but I feel like I go to deep. I see fish on my fish finder. I try and set the hook at about the level that I see them if they're suspended. If they're 5 feet off, I put a 5-foot leader on, or and I don't know what it's doing. So
sometimes you just have to let it set there and then shake your rod. Don't like lift it or anything. Just shake the tip.
Okay.
That worm, like if you do it in shallow water and you see the worm working when you shake it goes nuts. It's like it doesn't feel like it's doing that, but it does. It's pretty cool.
And I'm not a dead stick it like for the I mean, you're not dragging it towards you. You're just chuck it and then
I've dragged it towards me before.
That's what I've been doing, but I have had no luck. So
I think somebody told me that Jacob Wheeler, or maybe that's who it is. So one of those guys, they drag their drop shot in shallow water, and I've done it before, and I've caught fish like standing on a bank fishing a pond that was like 5 feet deep.
Okay, I see that's another thing that I hear that is good in the river, but I'm like I can't even make it work in the lake, let alone in moving water. So
yeah, I probably wouldn't throw a drop shot in the river. I don't think I would need to.
Yeah.
Just because there's not very many deep spots anyway.
Right.
I don't know.
So, you've been fishing lakes quite a bit in this past year, mainly for like tournaments and stuff like that. So, what's been your biggest struggle with learning the lakes?
Probably the depth thing, like I mentioned earlier. Just trying to get over that mental aspect of 30 feet being super deep. I work construction, so I mess with a tape measure all the time. I'll run out 30 feet and look at it. I'm like, that's not that far. But then when you're on the water, it feels like eternity.
Yeah.
That's just a mental thing, and it's just something that I'm trying to work on. But I'll get there, I guess.
I've been throwing the spy bait whenever I have to try and get something down, because I know that when I count it down, I know where it is. It's not a question. I know it sinks at a foot a second. So if I chuck it and count it down, then I know I'm at the depth I want to be. But so far I've been murdering perch on them, but I've only caught like 1 or 2 bass with it. So
I need to try one of those. I've never tried one.
I plan on ordering 1 or 2 the next time that I put in like a tackle warehouse order. I just hadn't put one in a while, so I hadn't tried one yet. But yeah,
I like it because it's supposedly idiot proof. I mean, it's pretty much he's the guy we talked to about it. He's like, yeah, it's just a straight chuck and wind, and you count it down, throw it past where you want it to go, or where you're shooting for, let it count down, and then reel it slow reel it back as slow as you can stand to do it. So
That was a good episode.
yeah, that guy was cool.
Yeah, it's just a lot. Every time you hear somebody talk about the spy bait, you hear them talk about grass and clear water, and it's just like, in Ohio we got grass, but our water is so dirty, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
And see, I don't have grass, so
Yeah.
Well, Redmond, where I fish, it doesn't have grass either, and it works on the white perch anyway. So.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that gets me, doing the podcast, talking to a bunch of different people. Almost everybody you talk to about a technique's like, yeah, throw this in the grass or near the grass. And I'm like, I don't have grass to throw it in or near or anything like that. Percy Priest is like all rocks. That I've recently found a couple spots that have some pondweed, but other than that, it's rock. It don't even have a whole lot of like visible wood structure. There might be some submerged, like fully submerged, that I can't see, but if there is, I don't know where it's at.
Yeah, I love fishing rock though, man. It's awesome. I like fishing grass though too. Like the saying goes, find the grass, find the bass.
I would love to like go down to Gunnersville or one of those big grass lakes, and as many techniques as I've heard people talk about that involve throwing it in grass, I'd love to actually be able to put that to work. I had me a frog and a chatterbait and a Cinco and all that tied on, ready to go.
Yeah. And speaking of grass, my buddy actually showed me a new presentation recently. He gave me a little crawl imitation and told me to rig it up weedless and throw it in like the patches of openings in grass. I'd sit there and throw it on the edges right there, and they would nail it.
Just weightless? Or?
Yeah. And it was cool because that crawl would like slowly sink. I mean, slowly. And you twitch it one time, and it would like do some crazy movement, and then slowly sink again. It was pretty cool.
We need to go back to Dill Hollow.
I know. Oh, I love that lake, dude. I might go down there again September. We'll see.
Let me know.
All right. I was talking to Justin about it, so that'd be sweet.
Yeah, so as far as like your breakthroughs with fishing lakes and stuff like that, like has it been, since you like kind of conquered your fear of that deeper water, or are you having most of your success in the shallower water?
Trying to think. Our last lake tournament, I was fishing deeper. It was probably around 11 feet deep, 11, 12. So I was throwing shallow but pulling it deep and fishing laydowns and stuff. And that same day I was like, it makes no sense. I can't catch a fish on a football jig, but I throw a chatterbait down there and I drag it like a football jig. I can catch a fish. I don't get it.
Whatever works, right?
But yeah, that's how I was catching a few fish like that at the last tournament. I don't know what the deal is, but
see, I don't even use a football jig anymore. That's what my mold is, where I make my own, and that's just when I first got into bass fishing and first got told I need to get a jig. That's what people had me get, and so whenever I got into making my own, that's what I bought. And I never really knew the difference in why I needed this jig or this jig or this jig for different applications. And so I was just throwing that football jig everywhere. And come to find out, after learning a little more, my style of fishing was mostly, if I'm throwing a jig, I'm mostly throwing it into like wood structure and stuff like that. That's more of like a flipping jig.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much all I throw now. JigMaster flipping jig. Promo code BNF20, 20% off.
I need to try those. I feel like I can grasp the concept of a flipping jig. I just can't do football jigs. Because if you think about it, like when I'm throwing a Texas rig worm, I'm doing the same thing. I'm throwing it in the cover in the same spots, working it the same way. So if I can get hit on that, I can get hit on a flipping jig, I'd imagine.
That sounds like it, yeah.
I don't know. This is stupid stuff that goes through my head like this.
See, I'm kind of to the point where it's like, okay, so you said that, working a chatterbait like a football head jig, then you were successful with it.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's kind of like, okay, you have no need to even work on a football head jig because you already have something that will cover that application. And so that's kind of where I'm at. Like, get something that can cover all water columns and in a slow and a fast pace, and you're good. You don't have to learn every technique there is out there for bass fishing, as long as you have something similar to cover that.
And I like what Josh off of Darkwater said. He has
I don't know. I don't listen to
techniques.
That guy.
I try not to, but I keep getting sucked in. No, I like what he says though. He picks his 5 best techniques and he just sticks to those. Why do you need to learn all these new techniques that you're never going to use? But
and it to me it just kind of confuses you.
Yeah, it does.
And like going through all my stuff tonight to set up for tomorrow, it's like I was going. I've got a bag. I probably don't take as many soft plastics as most people do, but I still feel like I have a lot. Like I probably got anywhere from 30 to 40 bags of soft plastics in a bag. And, I'm going through them all and I'm like, okay, this is maybe for tomorrow. This is maybe for tomorrow, maybe for tomorrow. And by the end of it, I had like 10 or 15 different bags of different things set over to the side to go through to set stuff up. I'm like, why do I really need all of those options where like, okay, there's a Ned rig and a shaky head and I don't even remember what else it was, but like they're kind of cover the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you can catch a fish off one of those in an area, you're more than likely going to catch fish off the other.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be wrong, but like that's just the way I feel about it.
I feel the same way. Like I said about flipping jigs and a Texas rig worm, I throw them in the same spots. But
and see, that's something I can't get myself to even throw. The Texas rig worm.
Oh man, that's one of my favorite things. Just only because I love setting the hook. It's so much fun.
We talked about it whenever we had Jimmy on, and he kind of put me in my place with it. But to me, it's like that's like the basic technique that everybody learns. Like it's like everybody's first technique for the most part. And so I've never even caught a fish off a Texas rig. I don't think. Actually, I have. I did it Del Hollow.
Yeah.
Pulling it through that grass.
Yeah, because we were like, put one on, dude. Just do it.
Yeah.
And you did.
And then I did, and I didn't know I needed a bobber stopper. And then so later I tried it again with the bobber stopper, and I caught a fish. It was actually a decent fish. It was like a 16-incher.
Yeah, I remember that.
To peg your weight, I guess you were saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, to pull it through that grass.
Gotcha.
That's the only way I fish grass with them. If I'm fishing wood with them, I won't really peg it. It does because it don't matter at that point. You mentioned that you have a setup for each part of the water column, and I thought that was interesting. I do the same thing, kind of. So I'll have a chatterbait, a Texas rig worm, Ned rig rod. I don't know if I have top water rod or not. Swim bait rod, and well, I broke my other rod, but that was my drop shot. Well, no, that was my Ned rig rod. I broke my Ned rig rod today. but I have a drop shot rod too.
I saw you broke that rod. How'd you break it?
So you know when you get snagged and you do the little bow and arrow thing to get it unsnagged. I went like that, and it just went.
Seriously?
Yeah.
It had to have prior damage to.
It probably did. That's like 4 years of me doing that to it. Sounds like
all those fish you've been catching them wore it out.
It's whatever. I'll just go and get another Fenwick HMG or something, cheap one. No, I'll get a Douglas rod. Brian, give me a Douglas rod.
I'll take one too while we're at
it. If I wasn't a brand loyalist when it comes to rods for the most part, then I'd take one too. But
I'm not brand loyal. I'll use anything. I don't care.
I don't know. It's kind of weird to me. Like right now, I carry 4 rods. Right now, 3 of them are duck. Where I've kind of started trying to upgrade. 3 of them are ducket now, and one of them is like a 13 fishing, and I'm like, I need to get rid of that rod and change it because it don't match the rest of them.
Well, which 13 fishing one?
It was like a $60 combo at Academy. Okay. So
I don't like I have the Fate Black and I don't really like it. I take it back. It's a good chatterbait rod, but that's it.
Well, it's a spinning rod, a little spinning combo, and it serves its purpose. It's decent. They're real smooth and everything, but I don't know. I'm not a big spinning rod kind of guy. I'm terrible. Got terrible accuracy casting, and plus being in a kayak, I don't know if I'm just kind of lazy with my arm the way I hold it. But I always kind of hold it down and I'm hitting myself. Well, you can't really see my motion, but I'm hitting my leg and my stomach or whatever as I'm trying to turn. It don't feel good.
The only time I use spinning is when I'm using the netted rig or drop shot. Everything else is bait caster for me.
So I'm kind of the opposite. I'm much more comfortable with a spinning rod, but I think it's only because that's what I've thrown for so long. I've only been throwing a bait caster for like a year and a half now, so I feel like I'm way more accurate with a spinning rod.
See, I cannot. I'm not amazing like some people with a bait caster, but if I can look at an area that I want to cast in and get at least within the vicinity of it, but with a spinning rod, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna cast right there, and I'm 10 feet away by the end of the cast. Well, that area is not that bad either. So
it's harder when you got lighter weights too, or a longer rod. When I first got my 7'2" rod, I could not cast accurate at all.
See, I just whenever I got that 13 fishing, that's a 7-foot rod, and I think the one I had before that was like a 6'6" or maybe a little bit bigger than that. And so I got longer, and I figured that would help. But I feel like I don't cast very far, and I'm terrible accuracy. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I don't know if it's the rod. I don't know if it's me. I don't know if it's the line or what. But
so
I like fishing with that.
Yeah. Before I started using bait casters, I was one of those guys that got the same rod, the same length. So I all 4 of my rods would be 6'6" mediums. And I would throw chatterbaits on them and Texas rig. I didn't know what I was doing.
I didn't. Yeah, that's how I think everybody starts.
Yeah,
I remember having a little cheap spinning combo. I don't even know how long, probably 6'6" or something like that. But it was a little cheap combo, like a $20 combo, with that Trilene big game mono on it, throwing a Zara spook, the big one. Hey, I that thing right there would soar on that spinning rod. I cast pretty far with it, even though I didn't know where I was supposed to be casting at with it. But man, I remember us casting up to the bank one time, and I done had the knot snap on me one time with it earlier in the day, but Zara spooks float, so I was able to go over and get it. Well, I was casting to this bank and I'm a decent ways away from it, and I rear back and I cast and the knot broke again, and this thing went soaring through the air and landed in a tree like 25 feet up in the air.
How mad would you have been if you threw that spook, it landed on the water after it broke the knot, and a fish came up and ate it?
Like why, God, why?
That'd be funny.
Oh man.
I've thought about that. Like if I break off or something, like I wonder if a fish ended up eating that.
My fifth catfish today took my inline spinner and my leader, so he probably has a good 15 foot of leader hanging out of him wherever he is now. So
Your fifth catfish for today?
yeah,
That's crazy.
it was crazy. I have no clue what I was just throwing an inline spinner, and like I said, after like the fourth huge one on the first one, it bent it and it wasn't even spinning right, so I tied on another one, and probably my second cast, another one nailed it and broke the knot my leader off at the knot. So
I think those catfish are biting like crazy because they're either about to spawn or something, or they already spawned and they're like hungry again. Because it's same time every year. It seems like they always fire up right now.
Well, everybody seems to be catching catfish on bass lures right now. It's kind of making me think like I need to go catfishing if they're that aggressive right now.
Oh man,
I love eating catfish. Catch a bunch and clean them up and stuff. But it'd be my luck. I'd go target catfish and not get any.
yeah.
They definitely fight. They were fighting great today. It was fun, but I was just like, oh man, not another catfish.
Yeah. Yeah, Ricketts would be like, what? A catfish?
I think he's been on some good ones here lately too.
Yeah.
He's been. I think I saw the other day he had like some huge catfish that he's been catching.
And I was like you too, Ryan. I was like, man, this is a huge bass. And then because they don't come up and jump usually.
Yep.
So I'm like, no, he's staying down. It's probably another catfish.
Yeah.
But then when I was getting them up near the top of the water, they were like flicking their tails like crazy, splashing everywhere. I was like,
They usually do that death roll too. They just keep rolling. I hate that because you try to net them and then they just roll.
Yep.
Nope, not today.
Got a long hair hanging off of me. But yeah.
Cool, man.
Yes. We're right at an hour now.
We're getting good at timing that,
Yeah.
Like, we got nothing else to say. It's right in an hour.
Well,
I don't know. I felt like I've grown a little bit this year, but I don't know.
I feel like I've grown quite a bit, and until like I'm not having luck out while I'm out fishing, and I'm like, I still know nothing about fishing.
You've already caught way more fish this year than you ever have, though.
Oh, dude. Last year, I remember talking about it. I caught more than twice. Okay, my first 5 years of bass fishing, this is like year 7. My first 5 years, all the bass I caught in those 5 years combined, I caught more than double that last year. And I haven't tallied it all up yet to this point, but as of like 2 or 3 months ago, I'd already beat that number. So I wouldn't be surprised if I end up doubling this year.
Yeah.
Because, when we get into fall, dude,
I can't wait.
Last year, fall was pretty good to me. This year, I feel like fall is going to be great to me. Hopefully.
It should be. Fall was good for me last year, too.
Maybe fall will give me a new PB again. And dude, that was so crazy last year. Okay, we went on the Del Hollow trip.
Oh yeah.
I caught like 2 fish the entire time we were up at Del Hollow. We're up there. Well, y'all are up there a day ahead of me. I got up there kind of like 10 o'clock in the morning on Friday.
Yeah.
We fished Friday, fished Saturday, and then Sunday we just got up and left. And on the way home, I'm like, man, drove all the way up here and only caught 2 fish. They're wearing fish out, but I could only catch 2. I was like, I'm just gonna stop somewhere and like just see if I can get a couple. So I end up stopping at this spot that I'd thought about fishing before, and I'm throwing a jig and everything, and I see a bunch of splashing up by the bank. I don't know, I guess this bass was just tearing up something up there, like some bait fish or something. I threw the jig in there, got the bite, went to set the hook, missed, reeled in, cast back in there, got the bite, set the hook, got him. He was like an 18-incher there. He was feisty, and then I was working my way up a little bit more, and there was some wood structure that was in like 10, 15 foot of water. Man, I'd done cast probably 4 or 5 times in like to this structure with nothing. And this last time I cast out, and I was like, this is my last cast, and then I'm leaving. Been out there like 2 hours. Man, I was bringing that jig back and hadn't got anything, so I went to start reeling to bring it in. And as soon as I started reeling, bam! And man, I'm sitting here reeling as fast as I can with this fish on there, but my spool is just still. It ain't moving. Yeah, man, I got that thing in there, that 21-inch largemouth.
That's tied my personal best.
Man, but that it was crazy. I drove 2.5 hours to Dale Hollow to meet you guys, which it was cool. Like I got to meet all y'all and hang out and all that good stuff.
Argue with Josh.
You had to bring up the cheese thing, man.
Cheese.
It's still funny.
It is. Oh man, if we ever have, well, I'm sure we will, but whenever we have another meetup, dude, I'm bringing so much cheese.
You know what you can do is go into Josh's room and just slap pieces of cheese on his face
while he's sleeping. Put cheese on his face.
That should just be a thing the whole weekend. You just, those videos where they just throw a piece of cheese and it sticks on their face.
Yeah.
Hey, we're gonna be fishing. Like, hey, Josh, what?
Oh, man, that's awesome.
Oh man, but yeah, it was just crazy that like I drove all the way up there to fish and caught 2 fish that were like 16-inch range, and then on the way back home I caught that like 40 minutes away from the house. I caught my PB.
And just a place you just happened to stop.
It was a place that I thought about fishing before. I just never went out there.
Stones River, you said?
Yeah.
There's a lot of rivers I want to go out there and fish.
See, Stones River is completely different than what you're used to.
Yeah. It's like a deep slow.
Yeah. And I think there are parts of it, like if you get on up in it, where it's like smaller and, faster and got like some riprap and stuff like that. But the areas where like the boat ramps are, it's like 20 feet deep in the deeper parts, and it's a decent width, and it's just all slow and stuff. So that's why, like, when I first talked to you about river fishing, it was hard to put any of that together because this river is completely different than.
Yeah, I thought about that after that. It's like, yeah, I gave him the wrong advice. That's probably like a largemouth river.
Yeah, I mean, I caught that 21-inch largemouth in there. Like, well, I think my previous PB smallmouth came out of there. Caught that in November. But, I was fishing deeper. I was Ned rig right up against a rock wall in like 20 foot of water.
Mm-hmm.
And I just beat that a couple weeks ago out on Duck River by 1/2 inch. So
Jeez.
it was like 17 1/4, and then I just beat it with 17 3/4.
Oh yeah.
I'm not.
That's a good smallmouth, man.
I'm trying to get to those smallmouth like what you catch. You know.
I don't catch them consistently enough though. That's the thing.
I don't know. Hey, back in I think it was like May, you were wearing them out. Like you
Yeah.
were.
I have a spot. I have that spot dialed in. That's why. That's like a pre-spawn spot.
Yeah, you're gonna make me make a trip up to Ohio. You do that ever again?
March, April, and May, best
Yeah.
times for that spot.
Cool, man. I appreciate you coming back on here to celebrate our 1 year on Paddle and Fin.
Yep.
It's been a fun ride, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, the show's grown a lot since even with Sean on it. It's pretty good. I like it.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, just where Paddle and Fin has gone since a year ago. It's crazy.
Yeah, you think about it. Like a year ago, we had like I don't think we had any real sponsors yet.
I don't think so.
And then we ended up getting JigMasters, and then Ketch and all those other ones, and just slowly growing like that. It's cool to see how much grown in a year, and how much we've grown in a year. Like not just podcasts, but us as individuals, how much we've grown as fishermen, and how much we've grown as podcasters, because all of us are like kind of I don't know, in a way, kind of like pro podcasters now. We get on and we do this, and it's kind of natural to us now. And where we were like all nervous and like
well, you saw the message I sent the group. Smalley Talk podcast host Josh Shrinko from Indiana.
Yeah,
he said, "Man, you paddle and fin guys, you guys are professional." Like it's like, thanks, man, appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean he's wrong, but yeah, but no, like we, it's cool to see like how the reactions we've gotten from people, and a year ago nobody in kayak bass fishing knew who I was, and not saying that I'm anybody now, but people actually, there's people out there that know my name because of the podcast and everything, and as many people have reached out saying that they like how much they like the show and everything. Like, I don't know, it's a cool feeling, and I appreciate everybody that's stuck around and listened to us for this whole year or longer, however long you've been listening, and supported us. It's been a fun ride.
And yes, speaking of, I spent the weekend fishing with Paddle and Fin listeners Josh Cravens and Nick Necrelli. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Did you see his Bite FD?
Yeah, it's cool. He likes it. It's a cool kayak. But yeah, shout out to Nick and Josh.
So yeah, who knows where we'll be in a year? If we got this far in a year, gosh, anything's possible. So it'll be interesting to see where we go.
Yep. I'll come back on next year.
Ryan, would you have expected to be doing like the Noobs tournament at this time last year? Would you have said, oh, maybe in a year we're going to be doing?
I didn't think that this segment would have the following that it has at the time. I figured I don't know. I didn't even know if I'd have a co-host at the time. Mm-hmm. I didn't even know if I'd still be doing a podcast at this point. I figured my ADD would have kicked in, and I would have like, what, I'm not interested in doing this anymore. But it's been cool. I feel like it's made me grow as a person as far as like organizing and getting tasks done and everything. But yeah, I just saw this segment being like a smaller segment compared to a lot of them. Are you taking a picture?
No, I'm not.
Hang on, selfie break.
My bad.
Well, cool, man. You know,
Yeah.
1 year, many more to go.
Yep. First of many.
Yep.
So. All right, guys. Well, I'll get my outro right, for the 1 year anniversary. I can't screw that up, right? So. This has been the Bass Fishing for Noobs segment on the Paddle and Fin podcast, where we bring you the techniques, the tricks, and the tips to help you rip more lips.
Ooh,
Boom!
getting good at it.
You say fishing?
Did I?
All right, appreciate it, y'all.
See ya.
See you guys.